What's up, everyone? This is Mavic from the Caliber Collective. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a very early build of an upcoming game called Dagger Directive. Microprose has provided me with an early preview build to give us a look at this upcoming title. However, they're not limiting what can be said about my opinions of this preview build. Keep in mind, everything you're seeing here is very early development stage and is not feature complete, is not polished yet. The weapon balancing and tuning will all change as development continues. So what is Dagger Directive? It's essentially a nostalgic throwback to classic FPS games like Delta Force 1, Delta Force 2 from the late 90s. It is being developed by a single developer who is also a veteran in the armed services. Even though this is sort of a nostalgic throwback, it's not a knockoff of games like Delta Force 1 or Delta Force 2. It is very unique in its style, and it has modern FPS features like realistic physics, bullet drop, bullet velocity, and modern AI. After playing the game for several hours, I can definitely see the vision this game is aiming for, and in short, it is a lot of fun, but there's much more to it than that. I wouldn't say that Dagger Directive is overly complex from a mechanics standpoint, and that's kind of what you would expect from a single player experience that is inspired by the good old days of FPS shooters. The golden era, if you will. This style of game is what is still influencing games we know and love to this day, though. Nearly 30 years later, we are seeing modern reboots of games of this style and era, but none of them really capture the true essence of them like Dagger Directive is. For example, Delta Force Hawk Ops just came out at the end of this past year, and that game is absolutely fantastic, but it doesn't capture at all the original. Like nothing. It's completely different. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't have the same style. Pretty much nothing of Delta Force Hawk Ops captures that original Delta Force from, again, the late 90s. And that's where a game like Dagger Directive really fills the gap. Even though Dagger Directive doesn't have a really complex set of mechanics like some modern games do, it's still very challenging and rewarding to play. One of the reasons for this is the AI. Let's face it, AI in the late 90s versus AI now is not even in the same galaxy. In Dagger Directive, the AI feels modern in tactics and complexity. You have to use cover, move and shoot, hit your shots, basically go slowly to get to your objective, and even then it's pretty easy to get overrun. Once you start the game up and you get it loaded in, you start out on a ship to prepare for deployment to the mission of your choice. There's 3 provided in the build here, but I do expect there to be at least 20 or more in the final game to exceed a 40-hour plus overall time to complete the game. Once you select the mission that you want to play, at least in this case, I chose a couple different ones. I played through the first and second mission, but once you've done that, you'll head to the armory room, and in there you're going to essentially select your loadout. Tons of stuff in there to pick from. In my case, I selected a suppressed M4 in the M82A1 Barrett with ranged optics because I like to poke from distance. That's kind of my gameplay style. So after you get your loadout together, you've chose your mission, you get to deploy. And you do that by going out to the helicopter. And once you do deploy, essentially, you're free to traverse however or wherever you want to get to the objectives. There is a compass at the top of the screen there, and that has the objectives, the direction, and distance to help guide your traversal to them, which is a great feature considering you will need to plan your attack vectors and how to attack the objectives to not leave yourself vulnerable to the very challenging enemy. The mission areas are also super big, like extremely large, which gives you all kinds of different, again, vectors to be able to attack the objectives. With the map designs being as large as they are, I would say that's another difference between Dagger Directive being a little bit more modern. They're such large maps, and that's a big departure from the older games where you felt like you're more on rails, where this doesn't feel like that at all. It feels more open world, so to say. It's not necessarily open world, but certainly feels that way for the mission areas. Another big thing, almost really one of the biggest components that makes or breaks a game like this is weapon feel. Of all weapons I used, they all felt individually unique, This is because they have unique weights, bullet velocities, calibers. So target lead and hold positions feel different between a 5.56 and a 50 BMG, as they should in a game that's using modern physics. The guns themselves are only really part of the experience. I would say the other big part of the overall feel is going to be the aim itself. How does the aim feel? And I can definitely tell you the aim feel is crispy. Sort of reminds me of old, like the original Counter-Strike. Admittedly, when I was watching the video that's on the Steam page, which by the way, the Steam page for Dagger Directive will be in the description below, so go ahead and give that a check. When I was looking at that initially, I was a little skeptical. It looked clunky, janky, whatever word you want to use for that. But in practice, it actually feels super good. It's intuitive, and it actually gives you a lot more awareness of combat that's going around you. You don't have a big scope when you're looking through the Barrett. You don't have this big scope that's obstructing all of your view, and it kind of like goes to one side or the other if you're, depending if you're leaning one way or leaning the other. It was a little strange to get used to at first, but I actually really like how it feels, and it really fits in with the stylization of Dagger Directive and that nostalgic sort of throwback, that old school feel adds to that instead of taking away, which is fantastic. But yeah, so those are kind of like the big points. But overall, this game so far has been a ton of fun. It takes me down memory lane from my teenage years playing FPS games, but it turns that experience up a notch for sure. One of the ways that I kind of judge how good a single player game is that feeling of time. I played the first two missions, right? And I really, in my mind, I thought that was maybe 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, but in actuality, it was over 2 hours with fighting all the hordes of enemy and shooting and scooting. It's just easy to lose track of time or even what year it is, because it kind of gives you that blast of the past. I'm really excited to see the future of Dagger Directive. Again, this is like a super, super, super early build, and it's already turning out to be extremely fun. And with the completion of the game, I just could only imagine it being even more fun. Tons of things to do, tons of missions, tons of guns. It's really just set the bar really high for my expectations for when this comes out. And I feel like if they go on the same trajectory, it's going to deliver. So that's all I have today to really talk about Dagger Directive. But if you do like tactical FPS games, don't forget to check out the Caliber Collective Discord. You can find that in the description below. If you like the video today, if you like stuff like this, go ahead and give us a sub, because we put content out on upcoming games on a fairly regular basis, so you don't want to miss that. With all that said, have a good one, y'all.